everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I have a shorter video for this week because I've been busy preparing to go on a little trip. I didn't want to leave you empty-handed though, and speaking of trips, as I've been preparing for mine, I've taken extra care to properly prepare so that I can avoid making 5 mistakes that could ruin a photography outing, and I wanted to share them with you. Starting with mistake number 1, forgetting equipment. Now, I don't like to gatekeep, but I don't mind saying that I don't think you're a real photographer if you haven't at least forgotten a battery or a memory card at least once in your life. It just happened to all of us, and I think it's a rite of passage into the photographer community. And I'm actually embarrassed to admit that a little bit earlier this summer, I forgot my entire camera and I had to hang my head in shame and leave as I had no camera to shoot with. And this mistake isn't just limited to the big stuff. I've forgotten camera straps, I've forgotten tripod attachments, lens adapters. Forgetting any of these crucial pieces of equipment though can ruin your trip. To solve for this is what I recommend. Write yourself a checklist and use it every time before you go out in the field. Just quickly look through each item and put your eyeballs on that item to make sure that you have it. And as you go out, you may find that you've forgotten new things. Just add those to your checklist, and that should keep it from happening again. And stick to that checklist. The minute I forget mine is the minute I forget something and ruin my trip. Okay, that brings us on to mistake number 2, and that is going out at the wrong time. Now, I'm going to speak to this one as a bird photographer, but I think this advice can generally apply to any type of photography. Birds are the most active during the first few hours of day and the last few hours of night. And this is also when the light is generally the best. So unless you know what you're doing and you have a specific reason to ignore my advice, try to avoid going out in the middle of the day. And this means if you're getting up early, pack your things the night before and just be ready to get moving so that you're not late and you don't miss this crucial time. There can be exceptions to this, like if it's brightly overcast, but generally speaking, avoid the middle of the day. Okay, moving on to mistake number 3, and that is forgetting to take care of yourself. And this is especially applicable for a long outing, but bring food, bring water, bring snacks. You know yourself and you know your body, so try to come prepared to take good care of it while you're out there. You might be able to last longer, you'll enjoy the experience more, and honestly, I can't tell you how many times I've packed all of my stuff, gotten out to the field, and I've had to cut it short early because I forgot water or I just got unbearably hungry. So make sure you've got all of the food and the water that you need. But this doesn't just have to apply to food and water. This can apply to things like bug spray. So for example, on my recent trip to Chincoteague, which I'll link up here in the corner, so please watch it if you haven't, I wasn't prepared for the intensity of the mosquitoes or the black flies, and it definitely impacted the enjoyment of my outing. Had I been a little more prepared, I think I could have had a better time. Okay, moving on to mistake number 4, and that is not bringing backups, especially for your crucial equipment. And this can somewhat tie into that first tip about bringing a checklist and following it, but specifically this one has to do with making sure you have backups for critical things in case they fail. For example, suppose you have a really good day out and you fill up your memory cards. If you don't have extra, you're going to be forced to either delete your photos or you're done for the day. I'm also guilty of accidentally leaving a camera on in the bag only to find that my battery's dead. So just be sure to bring extra batteries if you can. You'll never regret it. And this can even apply to cameras. I usually bring a second body with me always if I can spare the extra weight, because I never know when something might go wrong with my first body. And it can even be something as simple as dust that gets all over the sensor. I'd rather have a backup body than have to spot remove dust from 100 photos. So speaking of weight, let's talk about mistake number 5, which is overpacking. Now, if you're on this channel, you might be a little bit like me in that you like photography and you like gear. Personally, I get caught up wanting to be prepared for every possible situation and any possible thing that I can see, and this usually results in me carrying around way too much gear on my back, and things can get pretty tiring pretty quickly that way. So my approach for tackling this one, which I admit I do not live up to this at least 75% of the time, is that I'm not done packing when I've added every piece of gear that I can, but I'm done packing when I've taken away every piece of gear that I can and still have a viable kit to take with me out in the field. I find that when I do follow this philosophy, I'm less tired, I can stay in the field longer, I'm able to move around more and possibly capture more photographs, and all in all, I have a better time. Okay, so I hope those help. Those are my tips for this week. I'm gonna go start packing for my trip, and hopefully I'll avoid some of these 5 mistakes, but until then, I'll see you in the next one, and stay safe.